First, though, we're discussing today's top stories with Vanessa and the man who Donald Trump calls one of the most powerful men in Europe. And it's Nigel Farage. Even he's smiling at that one. Morning to both of you. Thank you for joining us. So here we go, Nigel. I mean, it's a big day for him. It's a big day for America, a big day for the world, and also a big day for you. I watched one of the rallies yesterday, and the president was sort of tub thumping, standing there, giving his big speech. The crowd behind, no masks, packed in like sardines. Is he killing people?
Well, I mean, some people do wear masks at the rallies, some don't. Also, don't forget, state by state, the rules are different. Look, I think in America, perhaps as in the UK, a lot of people have just got tired of restrictions and are saying, look, we've got to get on with the rest of our lives. Now, if you vote for Joe Biden, you vote for a Boris-style lockdown. If you vote for Donald Trump, you vote for getting on with the rest of our lives. And if you're vulnerable, shield.
And so, I mean, at the moment, the polls are sort of suggesting that it's a firm lead for Mr. Biden with 52%, while Donald Trump is with 44%. I mean, it's worth remembering 4 years ago that we had these same polls and Hillary Clinton was leading those. And then we know the history there. So we can't necessarily follow this, can we?
Well, look, Brexit, they got it wrong. Trump in 2016, they got it wrong. In fact, they've got more wrong than they've got right in the last few years. Also, don't forget, California and New York are huge states with big populations. This is not about the popular vote. It's about who wins states and gets votes in the Electoral College. I think everybody here knows this is genuinely close. My guess is that Trump wins just because of the sheer momentum of his campaign. Tens of thousands of people turned out at 5 different rallies all over America yesterday, despite the freezing cold conditions. And his campaign's got energy, optimism, and let's be truthful, Joe Biden is well past his best. He's not fit to be president of the USA. So look, I think Trump just about gets it.
Can I ask you then, is it sort of quite dangerous to kind of whittle it down to a simple thing, that a vote for Trump is a vote for not locking down and a vote for Biden is a vote for a lockdown? Because, of course, if you ask me, what do I want to do, lockdown or not lockdown, you go, well, I don't want to be locked down. Nobody wants to be locked down.
Bearing in mind also, let's throw in the mix here that here in this country, with those sort of politics, we do have a very successful NHS who are out to look after us. If you are in America, there are a great many American citizens who are utterly alone when they come down with COVID-19. Many Americans don't have that health system that we've got here and will die alone in their homes.
Well, and that's the electoral choice that people have got to make here in this country. Look, maybe there's a vaccine around the corner, and if there is, that's going to be fantastic for all of us. But if there's not a vaccine around the corner, are we going to go bankrupt as countries? Are we going to see millions of our small businesses disappear? And you talk about the NHS, Phillip, in our country. Well, look, lung cancer diagnoses are down 75% this year. People are not being screened for diabetes. Heart diagnosis down 60%. More people will die through lack of medical diagnosis because we've cleared out the NHS than will die of COVID-19. So, look, it's a similar debate on both sides of the Atlantic. The difference is here there's a real choice.
Vanessa.
Yeah, but one of the great differences is that here you can't imagine our having a general election and having to board up 10 Downing Street lest people toting guns come and attack it. You can't imagine our having a general election here and having to board up shops in case marauding hordes come and attack them. And the polarising effect, really, of President Trump on the nation has promoted a climate of such hot potential for violence and fracas, altercation, and people getting their heads bashed in by other people, that it's positively terrifying. And I think it's very difficult, isn't it, to venerate and glorify a head of state who would engender that level of polarisation instead of trying to unite people to divide and rule in this frightening way.
I'm afraid that back in 2016, we had a Brexit result in our country and a Trump victory in the USA. And those that opposed Brexit and those that opposed Trump never, ever accepted those results, even though they were democratic. So we saw 3 or 4 years of the establishment trying to overturn Brexit, albeit happening in a peaceful way. The reason that Washington, D.C. and other cities are being boarded up is if Trump wins, they know the extreme left will not accept it, will riot, and start smashing the place up.
But
Indeed,
Nigel,
they've been
Nigel-
doing it in Philadelphia. They've been doing it in Philadelphia just this very week.
Nigel, maybe one of the reasons that they're having to board these places up is that you support a president who tweets, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts."
Well, that's a matter of fact, isn't it? You know, when looting starts in America, the police are out there with their guns.
But it's not about
I-
when
I find
looting.
that- I
Excuse
just
me,
find
Nigel.
some-
It's not
I'll
about
apologise.
when the looting starts. Isn't it
apologise
about
for
why
going
the
out
looting
to
starts,
attack.
not when? And I would also like to say, before you get completely carried away with this rhetoric here, that the idea that we've got to live our lives is absolutely fine. If you're healthy, you can breathe and you can go out and live your life and run your business. But if you're stricken by this virus and you are ill and you're on a ventilator, but actually you can't get one because the hospital is full, or you haven't got the right insurance because you're in America and you can't get the treatment that you need, then there's no life to be lived or business to be run, is there?
And also-
This is a pandemic. Look how many Americans have already lost their lives as Donald Trump stands there breathing in and breathing out with no mask all over the crowd. I mean, this idea of living your life is perfect when you're healthy and you can live
Well-
it, not when you're not and you can't.
Well, the alternative is bankruptcy. The alternative is a national debt that our grandchildren will be paying off in 50 or 100 years' time. And the alternative, as we're seeing in the UK, is people getting serious, life-threatening conditions not being diagnosed.
So what about here then, Nigel? Then yesterday, obviously, Boris insisted that the second lockdown was going to end next month. It was actually essential. There are some who are concerned that it might be extended a little bit. What do you think about the second lockdown then? Should we be heading in that direction?
No, I really don't believe we should. I repeat the point. If I thought there was a vaccine coming on February the 1st, then the argument for lockdown would be quite logical. There is no guarantee of any such thing. The sheer level of damage that is being done by lockdown to people's physical well-being, their mental health, their jobs, their finances, the nation's finances, we simply can't go on like this. So if you're vulnerable, shield. I'd love us to have a test, track and trace system that worked, but so far we appear to have spent £12 billion for very poor reward. We have got to learn to live with this virus. Of that, I'm certain.
So, Nigel, you seem to have all the answers there. Are you ever tempted to come back over here and get involved in politics once again?
Well, of course, look, I've just come out for 2 weeks for the US presidential election. I have been a supporter of Donald Trump's for the last 4 years. I happen to think he's been a very good president. I happen to think that seeing America now as a peace broker, not a warmonger, the remarkable things that are going on, with Israel and Arab states coming together and all of these accords, I'm here to support him. I will be back by the weekend. And yes, I do want to be involved in this national debate. I think that our politicians and their scientists are ruled by fear, terrified of historical legacy, and I think lockdown is doing far more harm than good. We can just look across to Sweden to see they've handled things far better than us.
Did you say that you're only out there for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Have you just been out there for 2 weeks now?
Yeah.
Is there no quarantining for you?
Well, when I get back to the UK, there'll be quarantining, yes, but I will be back in the UK.
So there's no quarantining for Brits going into the States?
Not if you're going in on a media visa, which is what I did and what many, many dozens of British people have done to commentate on this really important election.
And so when you come back, if you are sort of 2 weeks if you do quarantine when you come back here, then
Yeah.
would you, as Holly said, would you consider getting involved? Are you going to wade into this argument?
Yeah, very much so. I think this is in economic terms and social terms the most important thing we've faced in many, many decades. And I fear the route we're going into. We lock down for a month, we'll come out for a little bit, we'll lock down again. I just don't think, that many of our 5.5 million men and women that are running small businesses, acting as sole traders, can even be in business by Christmas. And that would be disastrous for them, disastrous for the country. We need a different debate, and a different approach.
I mean, Vanessa, that is a fair point, isn't
Yes.
it? Like, that unknown of how many times we're going to have to lock
It
down.
is
How are we
fair.
going to learn to live with this?
I think Nigel is absolutely right. Nobody's looking forward to this. Many people won't be able to sustain it financially. Lots of people will find that their mental equilibrium goes right out the window and they're worried sick about it. Lots of people will be devastatingly lonely. It's going to be a hellish trial. I can't think of a single person who is looking forward to it or wants it to happen. However, it's quite clear that why we need it is to be a foot pedal on the demand on the NHS. That's all it is. And if you just put it that simply, you can see why we have no choice but to do it, because otherwise the NHS will have such a huge burden of custom from people who need to be in hospital on a ventilator that they won't be able to deal with. Well, we don't want that ever to happen to anybody in the whole country.
What was the point of the tier system? I mean, we jump from tier 2 to
relatively
lockdown.
incomprehensible.
There are some
I
other
think
parts of the
so.
country in tier 1 straight to lockdown. What was the point in that?
Don't know what the point of any of that was, but I can see clearly, and I think everybody really can, that if we continue at this prodigious rate, and we know that it is more serious and severe than their worst case scenario, so that is frightening, the sheer level of demand. You do not want somebody you love not to be able to breathe, to call for an ambulance which doesn't come because all the ambulances are somewhere else, and then finally to get to hospital and find that there's
So we
no
have
place for them,
we
do
have a month of this, and hopefully flatten the
I hope a
curve or
reprieve
whatever.
for Christmas.
Do we have a
And then
reprieve for
maybe
Christmas? And then
something
back into
similar.
lockdown in January?
Maybe that's the only. Maybe that is what Nigel
What is the
really
hope?
means.
What is the hope for British business?
Well, that eventually there'll be a vaccine and somehow or other. But I think what it sounds as if is that we're going to have to keep applying the foot pedal and applying the foot pedal until and unless the vaccine arrives. Because otherwise, how are we going to withstand this?
Final
I think
word,
that's
Nigel.
what living with it means, unfortunately.
No, we just can't do this. And look, the argument about the NHS, remember, we said this back in March. We finished up with 35,000 empty hospital beds, all right, and people not being diagnosed for serious diseases like lung cancer. More people will die through lack of medical diagnosis if we lock down once again in this way. It is a massive mistake. And look, you can always talk about worst case scenarios. You know, a giant meteorite could hit London tomorrow,
But it's
for
already
all I know.
hit, and it's
There is
called COVID. We don't have to, but we don't have to posit hypotheses about a potential meteorite. We have it. We all know people now who've got the illness or had it. It's not right
Nigel,
to say that.
There is plenty of science on the other side that says the Swedish approach, not locking down, but having social distancing and getting on with your life, is actually far better for the nation as a whole.
Thank you both.